The Princess of Ehime. The sun hung low over Ehime village, casting golden streaks across the lush green landscape. Ezinne, the daughter of Chief Ofor, walked gracefully towards the riverside, her feet sinking lightly into the warm red earth. At 6 feet tall, she was an imposing yet elegant figure, her light skin glowing in the sunlight, her long, pointed nose accentuating her striking beauty. She was adorned in the regal fashion of an Igbo princess. Her wrapper, rich with nsibidi patterns, was tied tightly around her chest and waist. A set of red coral beads rested around her waist, ankles, and chest, clinking softly with each step. Her thick, dark hair was braided and decorated with beautiful beads, swaying as the wind whispered through the trees. The sound of the river greeted her before she saw it, the gentle rush of water against smooth stones, the calls of birds perched on the branches above. This was where she came to think, to dream, and to escape the weight of her royal bloodline. As she knelt by the water's edge, dipping her fingers into its cool embrace, she whispered, "Allah, great Mother of the earth, guide my path. What does the future hold for me?" The river rippled, as if answering. In that moment, she felt a strange presence, a shift in the air, a force unseen yet undeniable. Little did she know, fate was already weaving a story far beyond her imagination. The warrior who stole her heart. The village of Ehime was a land of warriors, and among them was Ezinne, a fearless warlord. His name alone struck fear into enemies, yet to Ezinne he was more than a warrior. He was the man who had captured her heart. They had met one evening during the New Yam festival, where Ezinne had bested all other warriors in a wrestling contest. His dark skin glistened with sweat, his body carved by battle, his eyes sharp and calculating. But when he looked at her, there was gentleness, a silent promise. "Ezinne," he had said that night, "I have fought many battles, but none as fierce as the one my heart fights when I see you." They married in a grand ceremony that lasted 7 nights, where the villagers danced under the full moon, and the spirits of the ancestors were invoked to bless their union. Their love bore fruit, a son, Ezinne, a child as strong as his father and as graceful as his mother. Ezinne's happiness was complete. But fate is like the river, sometimes calm, sometimes cruel. The strangers from distant lands. One morning, white-skinned men arrived in Ehime, their robes flowing like the Harmattan wind. They called themselves missionaries and spoke of a new God, a God of mercy and salvation. Some villagers listened, intrigued by their words. Others, like Ezinne, saw them as a threat. "They do not come with only words," Ezinne warned one evening, as he and Ezinne sat outside their hut, watching the stars. "They come with a new way of life, a way that will make our people forget who we are." Ezinne held baby Ezinne in her arms, rocking him gently. "But if they bring peace, what harm is there?" Ezinne looked at her, his jaw tight. "Peace is not given freely, Ezinne. It always has a price. And soon the price would be blood." The war that shattered. Ehime tension grew in the village as the missionaries gained followers. Some young men abandoned their ancestors, took new names, and entered the white man's church. The village elders argued, and divisions formed among the people. Then, on a night when the moon hid behind thick clouds, war came to Ehime. The attack was sudden. Enemy warriors from a rival kingdom that had heard of the village's internal strife descended like vultures. Flames engulfed the huts, and screams filled the air as warriors clashed. Ezinne fought like a lion, cutting down enemies with his machete, but the attackers were too many. Inside their hut, Ezinne clutched 3-month-old Ezenwa to her chest, her heart pounding like the village drum. Her princess wrapper was stained with sweat, her red beads jingling as she ran. "Easy!" she screamed, but her husband was nowhere in sight. She ran to the mission house, hoping for safety. There, Lady Chalice, the white missionary woman, stood waiting, her blue eyes cold and unreadable. "Give me the child," she said. Ezinne's grip tightened around Ezenwa. "No!" "You cannot protect him," Lady Chalice said. "He will die here. But with us, he will live a better life, a new life." A loud explosion shook the ground. In the chaos, Lady Chalice seized the child and ran. "No!" Ezinne's scream pierced the heavens. She chased after Lady Chalice, her wrapper flying behind her, but the missionaries were already on horseback, disappearing into the dark. By dawn, Ehime was nothing but ashes and sorrow. The endless search for Ezenwa. For years, Ezinne roamed from village to village, searching for her son. She asked traders, travelers, even the white men in their uniforms. "Have you seen a boy with eyes like the rising sun?" she would ask. But no one knew. Her red beads faded, her hair beads loosened, but her spirit remained unbroken. She refused to believe her son was gone. Somewhere, in a land far from Ehime, Ezenwa lived with a name that was not his own. And someday she would find him. The end, or the beginning. Ezenwa, the lost son of Ehime. The night Lady Chalice took Ezenwa from his mother's arms, he was too young to understand what had happened. He did not hear Ezinne's screams, nor did he see the ruins of Ehime as the missionaries rode away. All he knew was the unfamiliar scent of the strange woman who now held him. A new name, a new life. The journey was long, taking them through dense forests, across rivers and past villages unfamiliar to him. Eventually, they reached the coastal town of Onitsha, where white men had built a mission house, a church, and a school. There, Lady Chalice handed him to a stern-looking man in white robes, who dipped his fingers in water and pressed them against the baby's forehead. "You shall be called Joseph." And just like that, Ezenwa was no more. The boy who did not belong. Years passed, and Joseph grew into a boy with skin darker than the white men, but lighter than his fellow children. His Igbo accent faded as he learned the language of the missionaries, but something inside him was always restless. At the mission school, he was taught to read and write, to pray to the white man's God, and to forget the gods of his ancestors. The other children whispered that he was different, a boy with no family, no history, yet strange dreams haunted him. He would see flashes of a woman wrapped in a colorful cloth, her arms reaching out to him. He would hear a voice calling his name, not Joseph, but something else, something forgotten. "Ezenwa, my son?" But whenever he awoke and asked Lady Chalice about his past, she would tighten her lips and say, "That life is gone. You are Joseph now." The call of the drums. One evening, when Joseph was 12 years old, a group of Igbo traders passed through Onitsha, selling yam, kola nuts, and beads. Among them was an old man with deep lines on his face and eyes that carried many stories. As Joseph walked past, the old man suddenly froze. "Chee-im," the man gasped. "This boy, he carries the face of Chief Ofor." The words meant nothing to Joseph, but something stirred within him. The old man approached Lady Chalice and asked, "Where did you find this boy?" Lady Chalice's face darkened. "He is a child of God now. His past is irrelevant." But the old man refused to leave. That night, he waited outside the mission house, and when Joseph sneaked out to meet him, The old man placed a small red bead in his palm. "This belonged to your mother." Joseph's fingers curled around the bead, and for the first time in his life, he felt something awaken inside him. He was more than Joseph. He was someone else. The journey home. Over the next few weeks, Joseph listened to the old man's stories about the village of Ehime, about Chief Ofor and Princess Ezinne, and about the war that had stolen him away. The truth burned inside him like fire. "I want to go home," he finally said. Lady Chalice was furious. She forbade him from leaving, saying he belonged with the missionaries. But Joseph, Ezinne, had already made up his mind. One night, under the cover of darkness, he ran away, following the old man through forests, over rivers, and across villages until they reached the place his soul had never truly left. Ehime. A mother's tears. The village was different now. The war had left scars, but the people had rebuilt. And there, in a small hut at the edge of the village, a woman sat by the fire, staring into the flames. Her red beads were old and faded. Her once dark braids now held streaks of silver. But her eyes, her sharp, pointed nose, remained the same. Ezinne stepped forward, his heart racing. "Mother!" Ezinne turned. For a moment, she could only stare. Then tears flooded her eyes. "Ezinne, my son." She ran to him, wrapped him in her arms, and for the first time in 12 long years, she wept not from sorrow, but from joy. Ezinne was home.